We have more breaking developments coming in. This is satellite imagery, which is most useful right now because it tells us what's happening on the ground. Let's take it up. This is the Natanz nuclear facility in Iran. Now, the satellite imagery shows, and let's get the Natanz, let's not confuse Isfahan with Natanz, please. Let's keep one image. There you go. And let's blow up the image the best that we can. This is the latest satellite imagery that has come from Natanz. Now, this one is purportedly showing the damage that has happened in the last few hours. And it shows there is, at least on the surface, what we can see, huge tracts of these facilities are showing fire damage, which would indicate that at least to the west of this facility, which you can see in this image, parts of which have been highlighted by the Israeli Defense Forces. There's no reason to squeeze it. Let's just keep it as the aspect ratio that there is. You can clearly see that some of these structures have been badly damaged. Now, the question, and there's no way for us to know this, the Iranians know it for sure. The Americans and Israelis will have their, down to the centimeter level aerial photography figuring this out, that what you see on the surface, how far deep underground has that actually caused damage. The Iranians have accepted that there is damage. They have said that we are assessing the damage, but at the same time they say no nuclear leak. So, if the single pointed question is, has the Iranian capacity to build nuclear weapons been decimated, it clearly indicates that it has been hit badly. Decimated, can't say at this point of time. So, then the question is, can this be rebuilt? The answer is yes. How long will it take to rebuild? Don't know. It could be months, it could be years. If it's years, you can argue that the Americans and Israelis have met their immediate purpose. They've set back Iran's nuclear program. That's what they wanted to do. Regime change may or may not come, but the immediate problem has been targeted. Let me get Ambassador Sikri back into this conversation. Ambassador Sikri, does it all fizzle away? What had to happen has happened. Iran actually doesn't have any friends.
Well, I think that I think the most immediate interest for everybody, and very much reflected in the telephone call from President Pezeshkian to our Prime Minister, is to de-escalate the situation, because I think regime change may happen well from within. We do know that Supreme Leader Khamenei has already made a list of 3 people who could succeed him, and he was already going through the process of maybe putting the list through parliament, etc. They want to keep the control in the hands of the religious leaders, and that is why he's already making a list that if something happens to him, or if he steps down, he is old and weak, there will be another alternate takeover. To think of a more liberal, moderate regime in Iran, that will depend a lot on the role of the president. President Pezeshkian is known to be a moderate leader, and whether he'll be able to put together a coalition. This will mean elections have to be called, the moderate side has to be elected, whether it will happen. But all this will take months. And I agree with you that the assessment of the complete damage, based on what the information we have also heard about the likely impact, I think this is also going to show that the damage may not be as deep as originally thought, but still it is enough to defer the nuclear program for a fairly long time. So in the meanwhile, I think our interest should really be in de-escalating, not allowing
Ambassador Sikri, will Iran actually say tomorrow morning or a week later, we've changed our minds? Because they've always said that it's a civilian nuclear program, and we have a sovereign right to possess civilian nuclear energy. So do you think they'll just change their minds and give it up?
In the talks that will or should take place, I think, as part of de-escalation, certainly the civilian nuclear program of Iran should be protected, and I suppose it will be protected with all the safeguards of the IAEA, etc. Those will happen, but that can only be agreed if there's a proper framework agreement on this. And I think that Foreign Minister of Iran's visit to Moscow tomorrow is very crucial. That is critical, because the reaction of Russia, and then through Russia even China, that is going to be very critical in determining the escalation.
Okay, so then I have to ask you the follow-up question. Does it matter? Because I grew up at a time where my exposure to this was just a charade, that weapons inspectors in Iran and Iraq, they just kept going in and out, in and out, in and out. It didn't make a shred of a difference to any weapons program if there was. In the Iraqi case, we were told that their weapons program never stopped. It was all there, and then of course there was nothing, and the Americans couldn't find anything. They couldn't find nothing. Zero. Zippo.
In the Iraqi case, as we know, the program, so-called weapons of mass destruction, they didn't exist. It was just a built-up case for going into Iraq.
So that's my question. If the Americans are after regime change, do they care? If Ayatollah Khamenei himself comes out and addresses the public and he says, "Tawba, tawba, never again will we even look at uranium ever again in our lives," does that stop the Americans?
Never say anything like that. I don't think that any Iranian leader is going to say that. It's only a way out to get a de-escalation going. And I must remind you here of what the Pakistan government has now said. To build up on what has already been said about Pakistan, they've now said that we condemn the American attacks on the nuclear facilities of Iran.
I'm sorry, I was covering it live, and I could only be bemused by this, given what we suspect has happened.
Exactly. So I think that really for the world and for us to have a safer world, a more regional stability, because we know that any attempts to close the Straits of Hormuz can be so devastating for the world economy and for India and China and many others.
Okay. So what do you think the Chinese are going to be telling the Iranians? That listen, live to fight another day, or is it listen, if we lose here, then we lose everywhere. So you have to fight it out. We'll supply you with what you need. What are the Chinese going to be saying?
Well, the Chinese, I think, are going to play a double game. They're not going to, encourage Iran in any way, because they don't want the regional stability to be disturbed. They depend on Iran a lot. They have a huge economic program in Iran. They built their civilian nuclear reactors. They have given so much aid, as you know, in the billions and billions of dollars, and their oil supplies, etc., will be threatened. They will not want regional stability to continue to be there.
For more such videos, subscribe to the Newsx YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.